Hi everyone, I'm Cara and today I'm joined by Jasminder from RAAH Fest. She's going to be here to talk all things RAAH Fest and their projects and missions. We're also joined by two of the lovely guys who are going to be chatting to us about their involvement with RAAH Fest. Also, so RAAH Fest is a youth-led 100% volunteer-run organisation, raising awareness for three main areas of modern slavery, migration, displacement, and racial discrimination. I hope that kind of explains it okay, Jasminder, but with that in mind, for those who don't know, can you tell us a bit about RAAH Fest and your mission?
Yeah, it's so nice that you're calling us RAAH Fest, because now we've transitioned into being just RAAH, which is really awesome. And it was a year ago that me and one of the guys, A2, in this conversation, we started RAAH Fest, as it was very organically. The idea was to just raise some funds for some charities that really impacted my life, but also definitely my friends' lives on borders in Belgium, in France, and Italy. And so I thought, okay, it's lockdown, and let's try and raise some funds for these guys. And I thought, okay, it could be a couple of £1,000 that we're going to raise. And someone told me in this process, to just think really big. And I was just like, what? And and as soon as I started thinking big, it was attracting so many people. And a lot of people were at home, stuck at home, doing nothing really. So we suddenly grew from me, and then a group of my friends, and then my family, and then now suddenly 100 other volunteers from all around the world, catching the vibe of RAAH Fest. Yeah, and so it was like an idea that was only meant to be like an hour or 2 hours long, and then it turned into 13 hours of content, which is insane.
Yeah, I did have a look at the stream that's been put up on your YouTube channel, which looked amazing.
Well, it's so funny because I literally cringe at so many things that we made mistakes on, which is so funny. So this year it's going to be bigger and better. But we're so grateful for the 20 charities who joined us in this idea of collaboration over competition, because we're all on the same mission. So yeah.
We do have a couple of people joining us on the Zoom now. I don't know if there's anything they want to speak about now, just giving you the space to talk about why you got involved in RAAH Fest, or if you want to share any lived experiences. If not, you can just pass them on to Jasminder, but let me know now if you'd like to jump in.
Yeah, basically, well, I heard about RAAH from Jas. She's a good friend of mine, and actually, I'm someone who kind of experienced difficulties with the home office and stuff, although I lived in the country for quite a long time. So I did understand what Jas was proposing, because I sort of had the first-hand experience of what's going on. So yeah, I thought it was a brilliant idea, and I think that people who try and help refugees and migrants should be supported all the way through, because mainly because there's so much of negative publicity about migrants and refugees, and it seems like there's an audience for these kind of negative publicities. Some people tend to buy these ideas that migration is all bad and all that stuff, where in reality many refugees are desperate people, and many migrants are are genuinely invited into the country most of the time. And yeah, so I think RAAH is a very good initiative. So that's why I supported it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as you're saying, it's so important because where you mentioned there is so much negative press in this country, I think a lot of people feel quite disassociated and removed from what's actually going on their doorsteps and in neighbouring European countries as well. So I think it's really important to get these conversations going, because when you do look online, all you're seeing is, you know, Home Office's attempts to tackle the migrant crisis like it's always a crisis, like they're an issue that we need to all tackle together. What kind of, and both of you like jump in wherever you, if you want to say anything here, but kind of what are your thoughts on kind of the wording of it being a crisis, and the Home Office's attempts, like Priti Patel's recently come out to kind of encourage social media platforms to stop glamorizing these dangerous crossings, which I think, how can anyone really say that it's glamorizing it and encouraging it? Trying to like implore these social media platforms to stop sharing videos and images. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think the best way of looking at that, where Priti Patel says all these nasty things, and where she actually plans to do these nasty things. I think the best way to look at it is look at it through the eyes of her own parents, right? In my understanding, they were migrants from Africa. She's of Indian origin. They are of Indian origin. To end up in Africa, you have to be a migrant from India to go to Africa for whatever reason. You go to Africa first, and then there was certainly some hostile situation from the governments back there, and they run away from that hostile environment to come and settle in this country. And a child of theirs now becoming the Home Secretary of this country, and saying all these negative things about migrants herself is just laughable. Her parents wouldn't pass her own immigration laws to come to this country. So I think it's a case of selling your own conscience to better your career. There is no other way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I always say that like 4 years, like I don't know how long it's been, like 4 or 5 years ago, when I confronted seeing like what a camp was like, one of these asylum camps in Italy. That was the very first time that I was like, whoa, okay, like this is a real issue here in Europe. Before that, I was just living in my bubble. You know, I didn't know anything. I knew about racism because obviously like growing up in the UK, you do face some kind of racism. But when I saw what my friends were having to face on different borders, and especially what they have to face in this hostile environment in the UK, I was absolutely like horrified. And what are the chances that we weren't born in Europe? You know, what is the chance? And especially when my grandparents are all like 3 of the 4 migrated to Europe. And so it's just like, why is Priti Patel not having this realization?
Yeah.
That the chances of her being born in India is very high. Hello, like it's kind of crazy. So yeah. Yeah.
I think Priti Patel's position various other things are laughable as well. She opposes Black Lives Matter, where she herself is a Black woman. Things like that. It's just a case of selling yourself cheaply to get somewhere in life. I think it's a clear example of of an individual who would do anything, who would say anything for some money or for some positions. That's what she is, in my view.
Yes, I agree. I think in such an influential position as well that she holds, it would be a great opportunity, especially in 2021, if we could not have someone who is contradictory of where they've come from and isn't pushing the beliefs that she does. I think another big story that's been in the news recently is the housing conditions of migrants. I think what we see is the picture of them crossing, but we don't have an understanding really either of what happens beyond that, what happens when they're actually in the UK, and they're placed in, I think the one that I saw recently, I think it's Napier Barracks, I might have said that wrong, or Napier Barracks in Folkestone, which the High Court did rule as unlawful conditions. They were housed there, obviously during the pandemic last year. There was a huge COVID outbreak, and of course that's been taken to court, but that's just one example of thousands of migrants who've come over and they're put in these conditions, but the Home Office has said that this is going to continue. What do you guys kind of think can even be done, or what kind of conversations do we need to continue to have so that conditions can be improved for migrants once they're here in the UK and beyond? Because of course you've got to look at mental health and their lives moving forward once they've been granted asylum.
What I would say is, from my experience in being a migrant myself, and also from speaking to many people from many different countries, most people who come into this country, they come here for a better life. They want to work. They want to contribute. They want to earn some money and support their families back home. That's their primary objective of coming into the country. And what the system in the UK and in the Europe basically does is they primarily prevent them from working. They do not have a right to work, and they are housed in these, poor quality accommodation. It affects their mental health, and it affects their approach towards the country as well. So I would say that this is an institutionally racist thing to do, because everyone should have their own. Everyone should have their right to earn a living. If you prevent that, and if you pay them, how much do they get? Like, I don't know exactly, about £30 a week or something, for their food and other expenses. And most of the time, they end up living in this accommodation for many, many months or even years. So I think it's institutionally racist. We should honor the dignity of people. Doesn't matter where they come from, what their backgrounds are, what the color of skin is. We should treat them like human beings, like we treat ourselves. That's what I would say.
And I want to add to that, of how there's so like individual testimonies of like not only is it the how bad is the accommodation, but then like every person is going through their own individual like struggle. And for example, I know a guy who had a stroke. He's been in this country. He's from an English-speaking African country, right? He's now in the UK. He's been here for over 7 years. His father got his documents, but he didn't get his papers, right? And it's like really ridiculous because they've both got exactly the same asylum story. And then he had a stroke. And this guy at age of 30 years old wakes up after 2 weeks in hospital, wakes up to a £90,000 bill by the NHS. He's not got his asylum papers. So how do you expect him to work? Like you're working for like £2 an hour. Sometimes you could be working, if you're lucky, you could be getting like £5, £6, £7 an hour. How on earth is he meant to raise £90,000 doing illegal work in the Home Office eyes and the UK government's eyes? And now it's gone up to above £110,000, and it's just going to keep increasing. And imagine that stress at 30 years old. Like he's in a wheelchair as well. He's paralyzed. So he's not even like, I totally forgot that part of the story. And this guy is like such a beautiful soul. Like, you know, he's so positive. He's like always telling us like, don't worry, don't give up, like keep going. And the Home Office are penalizing him for not being able to access their facilities because he's in a wheelchair. They expected him during the corona to come in a wheelchair to sign every week to say that he's still in the city. And so it's like these individual stories, and like the more that we branch out as humans, in like as citizens in the UK, and like to say, okay, let me just sit down and actually like sit with someone who has gone through this experience and actually become friends with people. It's not all about trying to understand the facts and figures. It's actually like taking that time out and saying, okay, I want to build friendships with people who are going through this. And that's when change is really going to happen, because then you realize, okay, let me open my doors to these guys, you know, and the government won't change until they start doing those kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, this like just like Jas said, this hostile environment thing. If you look at individual stories, it's so inhumane. Like for example, like there are so many people in this country who are not legally allowed to work. At the same time, they're not allowed to claim any benefits. They're not allowed to rent a room or a property, but they still exist. You know, how do they exist? They do illegal work. They do things that you shouldn't be doing, but you're forced into doing all these things. And up until recently, well, even now, if someone's being attacked, they would if you call the police, they would check your immigration status and stuff. And I'll give you one example of the implication of it. So, for example, if a woman is raped, right? You call the police saying that, yeah, I'm attacked by somebody, and as you know, the conviction rates of rape is really, really low. It's like less than 1% or so. But the person who actually complained, there's a good chance of her being taken away to a detention center, mentally tortured and all that, and then deported. So, you know, this hostile environment thing is absolutely inhumane.
No, that's absolutely fine. You've brought forward so many amazing points. I'm so happy that you were able to join us for the conversation, and thank you so much, Jas, for talking to me, and also for the guys who joined us as well.